row.
All right. Folks, I'm out of breath, but we'll call the Community Development Housing General Government Committee to order. As is usual, we will take the consent agenda first. I have, I've been told that there are people here to talk about C4F, which is Patria Street, and C4H, which is Bethania Station Road. Is there anyone here about other properties? Yes, sir? No. Okay.
305 Forest Hill.
Okay, that's C2E. Yes, ma'am? Say that again.
C4C.
There it is. Okay. May I have a motion on the
Move
And
for approval.
I would like to pull C2A. Sorry.
2A? Okay. All right. If there's no one else who wants to speak to a specific demolition list property, may I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, lovely, thank you. All right, let's start with C2A. Ms. Stimson, are you going to do?
The property at 102 Powers Road, building number 2, identified as building number 2, was inspected, and a hearing held in November of 2015. A repair order was issued, and said order, we obtained the proper service for both the hearing and the order, which expired. The dwelling became eligible for demolition consideration based on the 6 months vacancy and being unrepaired as of August 4th, 2016. The estimated cost to repair the structure is $16,043. Fair market value of the structure is $164,638, which categorizes as the less than 50%. And if the ordinance is adopted, this would be could be a candidate for in-room repair. Could possibly.
So my question on this one is, this is a legal non-conforming use. It's a multifamily. It was existing as multifamily, and then the ground underneath it was rezoned to RS9 at some point. So it has been unoccupied now for since 2013. It's certainly 2014. It's been boarded up, and so I just want to make sure this will not be able to be reused as a multifamily property. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Sounds like it's been unused for more than a year.
Right.
We did reach out to the inspections division to find out about it, and according to Jeff Vaughn, the building has lost its non-conforming rights, and no permits would be issued for any more.
Okay. So the owner's option is to refurbish it as a single-family property only, RS9.
Yes.
Okay. Tear it down. Or tear it down, right. Okay. It's a shame because when I was in college, I had friends that lived in this building, and it was really kind of cool. But it's
Some good parties there.
not that I went to. But it obviously has not been well maintained over the years, and it really negatively affects the neighborhood around it, which is, except for another building next door to it that these people own, the rest of the neighborhood is very solidly single family.
Okay, and it looks like there's been no response from the estate that owns it. So may I have a motion on this to repair or demolish in 90 days.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good, thank you. Okay. Sure thing. Okay, C2E, 305 Forest Hill Avenue. E.
You can sit here just a moment. That's it. This property was initially inspected in 2012. We issued a complaint notice of hearing, served an order. The property actually became eligible for demolition consideration based on the 6-month vacancy in January of 2013. The estimated cost to repair the structure is $5,529. Fair market value is $38,278. This property also would qualify for in-rim repair consideration.
And is it Mr. Wilson who's here?
Forgive me that I look like something else, and I'm not prepared at all.
We'll give your name and address.
My name is Dan Beam, and my legal address is Box 288, Advanced, North Carolina. We purchased this house from Forsyth County in tax foreclosure. It got court confirmation yesterday. We don't even have the deed yet. We went over there this afternoon just to make sure the property was secure and found the demolition note on the door. When I first did due diligence before we purchased the property and started bidding on it, there was no repair order or anything, or no demolition order or anything like that. As I say, we don't even have the deed yet back from the county. But the house definitely has good bones. For the sake of the neighborhood, it should be renovated. As I say, we just bought it from the county for $12,000, $13,000, and it was court confirmed yesterday through Zacchaeus Legal Services. We're supposed to get the deed back in the next couple of days. The property has a 120-day moratorium thanks to the federal government having a lien on it. And so for the next 120 days, substantial work really can't be done to it because the federal government can come in and take the property.
Wait a minute, I don't understand that.
And forgive me, I'm not an attorney.
Yeah.
But my understanding of the way it works is if the IRS has a lien on the people who formerly or owned the house, that if it is transferred, there's a 120-day period under which the federal government can come in and seize take the property. They would have to pay back what was paid in the past due taxes, but that would be it. So you can't really do substantial major renovation to a house during that period of time. But I would appreciate it if we could have enough time to go in, secure it, and start doing the minor demolition and the stuff that's not major during that period of time, and come back and revisit this in probably 3, 4, 5 months, something like that. Our intention is to renovate the house. It needs a new roof. Your 5,000 figure was a little low, to be honest with you, but it's a good house, a good structure, and there are 2 nice houses on either side of it, which would really love to see it fixed up.
Do you know
Oh, yeah,
Property.
I know the property.
the, yeah, okay.
Mr. Wilson, Councilmember Dee Dee Adams, the council member of the ward,
Mr. Bean.
Mr. Beam.
Yeah.
I applaud you for wanting to repair the dwelling. And I know that the neighborhood is just like most urban neighborhoods. We're going through a lot of transition. I know that you're saying, and I don't know whether legal staff can talk about what he's referring to and how that affects what we're able to do here today.
Mr. Andrews is not here today, so I'm not familiar with the tax foreclosure process that he just mentioned. But what I can commit to do is to check tomorrow with Mark Bardille, who handles the tax foreclosures, and see what he can tell me about the status of the property, and send a memo out. The committee wants to move forward to council on Monday and provide you with an update.
You told us that you have put some type of financial money to the property.
I'm sorry.
Nice tone.
Sorry.
Pretty.
Yeah. So you're saying you've basically initiated the steps to secure the property?
Yes.
What I would ask you to do, and I'll ask the committee, to give him the allotted time that he needs past the 120 if we can. Can we do that?
You can hold it in.
We can hold it. Let's hold this in committee. And the one thing that I ask you to do is go and clean up outside around that property.
Yeah.
And if you're putting boards up, and trust me, I will drive through tomorrow because it's right around the corner from where I live. If you could do that for me, I am sure the neighborhood, and I'll speak to the folks. As a matter of fact, my sister lives right near this house. But if you could clean it up, the weeds, the yard,
Yeah.
you know, get rid of any debris or anything that you see there, maybe cut back whatever's there, the shrubs or whatever, and make it look presentable appearance-wise to the community. I'm sure they would appreciate it, and I would appreciate it as well, and the city of Winston-Salem would appreciate it. We'll give you that time, and I look forward to seeing the refurbishing of this property. You're right, there are a lot of good old houses right there behind the Texas Pete neighborhood, I.L. Long, that neighborhood.
The next door neighbor has lived there for her whole life, and she's
Yeah.
twice as old as you and me put together.
Yeah.
And she is so excited to see something happen. She's the one who parks the truck in front.
Yeah, and we thank you. So, Madam Chair, go ahead.
You wanted to come back in September with a report from me in terms of the
Yes.
current procedures?
Yes.
In terms of tax foreclosure and the
Yes.
Okay, we'll hold this for a month and see where we stand then.
Super.
Okay, and tell me one thing. Your last name is Bean
Like
or
like a beam of light.
Beam,
B-E-A-M.
a beam of light. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Light, I understand that since we started, we have another person that has come in that is under C2B. They have come in, wish to be heard.
Okay. C2B, 1025 Louise Road. Okay. We'll take back our approval of that and let, is it Ms. Cason?
Ms. Razak.
Rashida Razak. You need me to spell it?
Please.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Dempsey.
This particular property, this case has been open since January of 2012. We issued a hearing and repair order on the subject property. It sat vacant and became eligible for demolition consideration based on 6-month vacancy in November of 2012. The fair market value of the structure is $18,741, and the estimated cost of repair is $3,795. If the ordinance is adopted, this one would also be an in-rem candidate potentially.
Yes, ma'am, if you'd like to speak. Spell the last name.
Razzak.
All right, thank you. Yes, ma'am, what would you like
yes.
to tell us?
Yes, ma'am. I have been calling about this property for a couple of years. My house, this is the front of the house that looks halfway decent. Do you have any of the back pictures of the backyard?
We do.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. I stay in the, it's actually, when I walk in my backyard, East Orange Made, I see the back of this house. The back of this house has, another house got burnt down and was tore down beside it, tore down trees. They let the trees fall over, so it's huge trees in the backyard that's dumped over in it. The grass is probably higher than me. There's been dumping sites back there. There's air conditions back there. There's all kind of things thrown back there. When you look at the back of the house, it's boarded up. Some boards are knocked down off of it. There's always some type of suspicious behavior going on back there. Might be a car parked, car might not be parked. Right now, it's not too much because it's like a jungle. You can't even get in the backyard. Kids hanging around, smoking pot and things like that. My house has been broken in maybe 5 times. I'll access from this way, coming over the fence, back and forth that way. The cops has actually brought the dogs out and tried to chase all the way over to Louise. But with so much traffic, the dog lost the scent because my house was just getting broken in every day. They were taking groceries. They were taking everything out of my house. And everything was coming from this property. I don't even like to go in my backyard. It looks awful back there. And like I said, with the other house torn down and then whatever they just threw over on the other side, this really doesn't represent it. I'm coming from work right now. Dad, did you get any pictures of the backyard? Oh yeah, well he had. They have some pictures of that backyard recently. Yeah, it's real bad. So I'm just asking that it be torn down for, worrying about my house getting broken in. Like I said, I've been on this thing since 2012, trying to call out there to get somebody to help me out with some type of assistance. And it just seemed like more and more the junk is starting to pile. Everybody's just making it a little dumping site.
Well, we thank you for the information. And if you'll give us your address, please.
1010 Charles Street.
Charles. Thank you, Ms.
Yes.
Rosal.
Yes.
Pleasure of the council. Yes.
I just want to thank you. A lot of times these houses come to us and they may or are a nuisance to the community. And we don't hear from a lot of people as to how passionate they are about their community and the property. So I applaud you today for bringing us that insight about that property.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the committee?
Second.
Did we already-
We
Okay, all in favor?
Second
We
time.
unanimous.
Aye, okay. Now, that's it for C2. Let's move to C4. C4C.
Excuse me, committee members, just for your reference, I know you've already taken action on this case, but there is a picture of the back of the house
Yeah.
in the book.
We saw it. That's why we were so eager.
Ms. Dempson.
Okay. This particular property is an accessory building that is located at 3641 Yale Avenue. It was initially inspected in December of 2015, and it was placed in the demolition category because the cost to repair exceeds 65% of the value of the structure. We issued a hearing and repair or demolish order, which expired. It has not been brought into compliance by the required time, which was May 15 of 2016. The fair market value of the structure is $500. The estimated cost to repair is $2,999. Recommending demolition.
And is there someone here who wishes to speak to this? Yes, ma'am. Yes, please. And if you'll give your name and address for the record.
My name is Paige Thomas, and I live at 3620 Yale Avenue. And this is actually just one of my neighbors, and she has a lot of disabilities. She can't get up the stairs, she can't move around very good, and she has a heart defect. So I came in to talk to her on her behalf today. She pretty much just wants a little bit of time so that she can hire somebody, because the house belonged to her mother and father who have passed away, and she just wants a little bit of time so she can hire somebody to get their belongings out before the building comes down. She's not objecting to the building needing to be gone or anything. She just would like to get her family things out of it first.
Thank
Does she understand that there'll be a bill attached to? building?
No, not that I know of. She just wrote like on the back of this paper, pretty much just what I said to you. I don't think she knows about the bill or anything. I don't know. She said that she was going to hire somebody to bring the stuff out, but I don't. Are you talking about like for demolition?
Right.
They would charge her?
Correct.
How much, do you know? Anything?
That I don't
you.
know.
No.
Depends on how much work.
Okay. So if she would have to pay for it herself, or you guys do it and she just gets charged?
The lien would be attached to the
Okay.
property,
To the property?
right? And
Okay.
She gets billed for it and it doesn't pay the amount of the lien to this property.
Okay.
And it'll be in the four figures, I would think. It would be over $1,000 is a guess.
I would think so, but
A house is typically, what, 5 to 10,
that seems about right.
5-ish?
Excuse me? Would you-
To tear down a house is typically around $5,000.
Generally.
And this may
generally.
be less.
This is an accessory building, so it may not be as expensive.
Right.
But I did speak with Christine Blevins, who is the owner. I spoke with her, as a matter of fact, last week, and I went through this entire process with her. When we held the hearing originally back in March, I explained to her that she made the same request at that time, and I explained to her the timelines and told her that whatever was in there, she would need to get out before it got to committee because they would more than likely be approving it for demolition. And she fully understood that the cost of demolition would be assessed against the property if she had not demolished it by the time you all approved an ordinance.
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Ms. Stinson, what is the timeline with staff, again, for when we approve this today for demolition? How much time is that to allow the owner to?
Because this is a 65% demolition case, when the ordinance is approved, if it is approved next Monday, it would probably be around 45 days, and the structure would be
That's
down.
enough time. That's enough time. Okay, thank you.
Make that a motion.
Yes. I move that we approve the demolition of Yale Avenue.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And thank you. You're a good neighbor.
Yeah, you got a question?
Just a comment, and not on the committee, but just on this, that there may be a note put on this in the process that if she's go back and share with them that it's going to be potentially 45 days, and we may get moving quicker, that they know what time is, so that we don't go in 20 days and they think they have 45 days.
Right.
I will call Ms. Blevins and let her know that.
Okay.
Thank
So you know, by ordinance, she's given at least 15 days anyway to remove the stuff, so it will.
Yeah, I'm saying, but be sure 45, and they may think,
No surprises.
yeah.
Yeah, all right. Okay.
You did a motion, I don't remember what.
Did we vote?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, okay. You can't expect me to remember something from.
We do it again.
I was talking and I'm sorry.
Okay, let's look at C4F, Patria Street. Yes, sir. If you'll come up and just wait until Ms. Stimson gives her report.
We have, again, another accessory building located at 2701 Patriot Street. The property was inspected in March of this year, and we held a hearing in April, issued a repair or demolish order. The time to bring it into compliance expired May 22nd of 2016. The fair market value of the structure is $100, and the estimated cost of repair is $1,656. We're recommending demolition.
Yes, sir. If you'll give your name and address, please.
My name is Jerry Shepherd, and my legal address is P.O. Box 33, Walkertown, 27051.
And what you have to tell us.
I was over there today. Let me start there with Mr. Bruce Bailey, and we looked it all over. Part of the difficulty, part of the not getting it done, is I thought that the building itself was just a building structure, and it's about 6 feet by 9 feet, rectangular. It turns out in reality that the fence that runs to it and connects to it, and I put a awning type structure over that about 30 years ago probably, and I don't know if you can see it in the pictures. I have never gotten any pictures. So I talked to Mr. Bailiff, and we agreed, or wasn't agreed, that he wasn't objecting to my going ahead and fulfilling the order to fix it. And based on what I've heard about values and cost of demolition and repair, I didn't know it was valued at $100. I really didn't. I'm astonished. So, I'm going to separate the fence from the building, paint the building, or put vinyl on it. I started putting vinyl on it. I patched the roof, which was one or two of the requirements of the order. And
taking care of the roof.
I got, ma'am?
The roof. The roof of the building?
Yes, the roof of the building, of the structure itself, not the shed type stuff attached to the fence. So I think it's reasonable that given a reasonable amount of time for this little old man to do it, I can do it and get it away. I bought that house that little building is on in September, I believe September of 1965. And it was there then. It is incredibly well built.
So you're saying that you will be able to comply with the and repair it?
Yes, ma'am.
And what time frame would you say? How long will it take you?
I'm hesitant to say that because a lot of things come up. I'm also pretty old, very old. You'd be surprised, maybe. And I don't know what's fair.
Jeff, you're on.
Do you live at this property?
No, sir.
What
I
kind
bought
of-
it from my family, though, originally
Right.
in '65, and
Is the house occupied?
not at this moment.
How long has it been unoccupied?
Oh, I'm not sure, but there's a little right up against it to put screens on, and you can't really see it, but there was more fence around that. Right there, the fence was in a rectangle. So screens and the fence removal or repair are on that order.
Has the house been unoccupied for more than 5 years?
Oh, no. Oh, absolutely not. Just a matter of months. I didn't even know the people were leaving.
Yes, Councilmember Light. Unfortunately, I will not be able to support this. I know what Patria is. When you have dwellings like this in a neighborhood or anywhere near families and children or anything else, I appreciate his wanting to repair this, but I can't support this because I just don't see it. I just don't. I don't.
It's listed on our agenda as the accessory building, not
Yeah, it's not the
what it
main.
is.
Although Mr. Shepherd said that there is a citation on the main house too, but that's separate from this.
Yeah, separate
Yeah.
issue. I mean, looking at the photos, it gives the appearance that there is no back wall and that the roof is slumped over, making contact with the ground. Is that fair?
A rectangular shaped building here and a fence vertically to the back end of the building, going 24 feet, 8 feet this way, and that was where I put the little shed roof to keep my little stuff years ago when I lived there. And unfortunately, it has fallen in. And so...
You're saying it's just the shed roof that has fallen in? Not
That's
the
correct.
shed roof, the awning?
Not the little structure itself. The little structure itself is sound.
Okay, so it's just this awning place that has
Yes,
collapsed.
ma'am.
Okay.
Do we have different standards? I mean, we're talking about minimum housing code, and this is not a house. Do we apply the same standards to an accessory building as we apply to?
I can't tell you that, but the question arose in my mind because it was written up as unfit for human habitation at 54 square feet.
As far as the actual violations that are cited, they are the same. But when it comes to occupancy, that's where you get into.
Right. And whether it's intended for human occupancy or not, it still has a very negative impact on its neighbors when it's in as unsightly a condition as this is. And this is also it's on a corner lot, isn't it?
It's on a corner lot. I can't really see that.
But it's seen from both Patria and the cross street. Is it Lemley?
They can't see it from either direction. Virtually.
I'm having a hard time with this because I'm having a hard time from the pictures seeing what's there to save. To me, it doesn't appear that there's a lot of structure. It seems like this would be rebuilding from the ground up versus saving an existing structure. Like I say, I'm having a hard time from the pictures to know if that's the case.
The lot itself is virtually an extension of the forested area that is directly south, where there were 32 new homes built over the last few years on Loman Street, at Wright Street. Patriot Street terminus was opened.
Madam Chair, I move for approval of the removal or demolition order to C4F.
Question, what's our time frame? Is it the same 90-day time frame that we typically
This
have?
will be the 45 days.
45 days.
Yeah.
Okay, so by next month's meeting, if we have a chance to get out there and see that it's different than the photos that we have in front of us, we could reconsider it.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm in agreement with Councilmember Adams.
Yeah.
It's impossible to tell from the pictures what there is there in terms of a building itself because it is so obscured by the awning, the fence, and vines that have grown over it. You really can't tell whether there's anything sound there or not. So.
Okay.
Just in response to Councilmember McIntosh's question, the minimum housing code, when there is a dwelling on the property, also addresses accessory dwellings and buildings, and so the standards pretty much are the same. So because this is in a deteriorated condition, staff is right and correct in addressing this particular property under the housing code.
So a procedural question, if we go out and view this and it's significantly better than what we see in the pictures, which I doubt, but if it is, then at next month's meeting, we could take different action?
If you see that, then probably what you need to do is let CBD staff know, Mr. Brooks know, so they can hold that
Right.
and bring it back to the process for you all to rescind the order that was adopted, or maybe adopted Monday night, and put something else in place.
Okay with that?
All right, Ms. Stimson, if you will. Okay, Mr. Shepherd.
Yes, ma'am.
You have till next month's meeting to make a difference in this, and we'll be looking at it. And if it's better, we'll rescind the demolition order. But right now, you're operating under a demolition order, okay? but you have till next month.
Can I make a clarification?
Yeah.
Because it goes to council on Monday.
Yeah.
So the council has to approve
Correct.
the ordinance on Monday.
Correct.
And then it will proceed from there. It may be beneficial for him to try to get it done before next month's general government committee meeting.
Yeah, that's before this meeting next month, the second Tuesday of the month.
So the 45 or 30 days after the demo order would not apply in this case?
Well, that's the
Will,
difference of,
but the clock starts after our city council meeting this coming Monday night,
Right.
And how many days? would that
45
be?
days. But if you're going to come back to have it rescinded, it needs to be done.
It would be helpful
month
to
from
have it
today.
done before then, so we can put it back into the process for the committee to start the process to rescind the demolition ordinance.
Will I be in jeopardy during that time if I'm making progress and if I just happen to have it all done by the next meeting?
If they can go out and verify that it's all done, then no, you will not be. But it needs to be all done, though. We need to maintain contact with the CBD department, Ms. Stimpson and
Ms. Stimpson, yeah.
I will.
Keep in
And
touch with
if my
her.
health holds as good as it is today, it's going to be done.
Okay.
And
Very
by
good.
all done, it's the items that are on this demolition order. So it's laid out what the things are that you're,
Yes.
And if there are
Required
any
to do.
questions, you need to ask Ms. Stimpson or Mr. Brooks and get a clear understanding as to what you need to do.
Okay.
I will, absolutely.
Good luck, Mr. Shepherd.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you. So this,
Very kind and generous.
We gotta approve.
so we, have we had a motion and a
Yes.
second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, H. C4H, the last one.
We also have someone else that has come in, I'm sorry, regarding D, 4D, 1903 Maryland Avenue.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and do H and then come back to D. Okay. Bethania Station Road. Okay.
This property is located at 4001 Bethania Station Road. We inspected the property in March of 2016 and held a hearing and issued a repair order. The time to comply with the repair order was May 25th of 2016. Fair market value of the structure is $10,000, and the estimated cost of repair is $6,700, which exceeds 65% of the value. Therefore, we're recommending demolition.
My name is Ethel Sale, and I live at 4001 Bethania Station Road. The apartment building there, it needs a new roof and some windows repaired and new doors and things like that, and I would like to request the opportunity to repair it. The reason it hasn't been repaired is because I didn't have the funds at that time, and I have some funds now that I would like to proceed with it. Another thing is the water lines under that apartment building goes to another apartment building that I have.
But in the same sort of development? Is the
Now,
second apartment?
I have a house and that apartment building and another apartment building. I also had another apartment building, and that is one reason that I'm in the position I am now. One night, Forest Hill Fire Department was bored. They weren't having any activity. So they came out and set my structure on fire, burnt down an apartment building that had 4 units and a bath and a half, and it threw me into shock. And then it kind of bothered me because I was working on some of the others. But the boy that said it, his aunt worked for the DA's office when Tom Keith was in the office. So they transferred it to Stokes County because of conflict of interest. And when I got there, they led me to believe I didn't need an attorney because the boys was going to plead guilty. Well, when I got there, they had attorneys. I didn't have one. And they didn't do very much to the boys at all. So I got very little out of it. So then my brother loaned me some money to finish the other building I was working on. So I have my first mortgage and my brother. And I worked third shift and I worked hard. And I just didn't have the money to put the roof on when I needed it. But now I do have some funds, and I would like the opportunity to repair the building.
There is a very long list of repairs that need to be made, and it looks like it's not just the roof.
Well, it's mostly the doors and some of the porches and the roof. It's the main thing that's there. But as far as the doors, instead of just 2 or 3 or 4 doors, what I need, I want to put 8 new doors on. I want 4 new doors on the back and 4 new doors on the front.
Staff is estimating cost to repair at $6,700. Do you have sufficient funds to do that level of work?
I have that. It may take a little more to do that because I've been checking on someone to repair it. And I'll need to make sure that I get someone that's honest and someone that does good work and reasonable. And it's kind of hard to find that because most people want a lot more than, so I don't know exactly what the roof will cost me, but as far as caulking windows, I can do that. And I would really appreciate the opportunity to repair it.
This is in your ward, Miss Adams.
I know. Ms. Sale, I appreciate you wanting to repair this property. I've seen the property. I've had people to call me about the property. And staff, I don't know how long it's been in this condition. Can anybody give me a date, roughly? When was the first time we went and inspected it? Do we know? Was that the date that's in the book?
For this case, there may be other cases
Yeah.
that are open and passed, but I don't
Yeah.
have that before me.
Unfortunately for me, I think, Ms. Sale, everyone knows that, I believe in the appearance of neighborhoods and properties throughout the city of Winston-Salem, but I am very, very adamant about the appearance of properties within the North Ward. I am going to do as I have just done on the previous properties, Madam Chair. I move for approval of the order for C4H, and that will give Mrs. Sale enough time to try to do something to this property, and that's where I'm at.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
A second, I'd like to make a comment.
Okay, please.
Looking at the pictures, I'm going to say you've got more than a $6,700 roof repair on this. I think the repair estimates are low.
I think the building is low at $10,000.
And that may be, but the question here is, are you going to put yourself in a position of scraping together money and not being able to fix this, and then we're coming back at you to tear it down later after you've sunk more money into it?
I will get it fixed.
Okay, we've got 90 days to start.
No.
No?
45.
I'm sorry.
45.
Okay.
Okay, so 45 days, the demolition order will be in effect. So, pardon?
From Monday.
From Monday.
Yeah,
45 days from
from
Monday.
this coming Monday. The council will hopefully approve what we recommend. And so, again, good luck to you on that. If you stay in touch with Ms. Stimson, and if you make good progress on it, she can bring it back to us next month, and we can rescind the demolition order. Yes.
45 days from Monday?
Next Monday, yes, ma'am.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I just had a question. The item replaced defective rafters. Are you talking about internal rafters?
I took that to
The external?
That's probably sheathing.
Brought it out.
Sheathing, and I'd have to ask the inspector.
Okay. I mean, it goes to how extensive the damage is. If it's just that external tip ends, that's one thing, but if it is reflective of the unsoundness of what's holding the roof up, then that's...
Yeah, it looks like it's just ragged along the edges, so that's probably where it is, yeah. Okay, all right, and then we had D to come,
Gotta approve it.
huh?
We did the motion, but
Oh,
I
yeah.
know, trust
Move-
our feet.
It's been moved and seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, D.
I'm here for you.
Thank you. Good vice chair. All right, D is Maryland Avenue. Ms. Stimson?
This particular property was inspected September 24th of 2015. A hearing and order were issued, allowing the owner until June 26th of this year to bring the property into compliance. The fair market value of the structure is $16,285. The estimated cost to repair is $23,525, which exceeds 65% of the value. Therefore, we're recommending demolition.
Thank you. And is this Mr. Coulter?
No, my father's deceased. He's been deceased for 3 years now.
Oh, okay.
My name is Charles Coulter, and my mother actually, the property is willed to her, and actually we have my dad's death certificate on file. Good evening, council members.
Good evening.
Again, my name is Charles Coulter, and I've actually had to take over a lot of my mother's, I guess, affairs because she's elderly and she can't handle a lot of the demands. My dad used to actually manage most of the money for her. I've actually already secured 3 different people to look at the house. Those repair estimates were a lot lower than what was just estimated. I have actually an estimate with me from one contracting company that does work for HUD. If you want, I can give you copies of that. He says that his estimate is for the repairs to be $9,800 and 14 days to complete once the date of this is started. I'm asking that actually the stay of this can actually be postponed for me to actually start the work. I have the funds to actually start the work. I just have to actually have the gentleman's schedule arranged to begin the work on the house. Actually, if you look at it, I've had the house boarded up because some of the neighbor kids have thrown rocks into the windows and damaged a couple of the windows. And so I've had to put that in place so nobody could get into the building or damage it further.
So in effect, you have arranged for repair of the property?
Yes.
Mr. Montgomery, this is in your word? Word?
One, and you drive down Maryland Avenue from the bottom of Maryland at 5th Street coming down, going back up, you begin to see properties that have been vacant and have issues with them. Since you state that you already have everything in place, my request to committee would ask the committee to move this item forward as it states. And if they're able to actually do the repairs as has been stated today, then it should be enough time to take care of those. And if, in fact, the timeline that's been given to you from your contractor, then you should be able to take care of the issues that are there. I just cannot, in sound mind, represent that community, not have this moving forward, because when you go down Maryland, you have multiple houses like this in that type of condition, and we continue to have issues associated with it.
So you would recommend then that we go ahead with the demolition order, and Mr. Coulter would have the 45 days to go ahead and get the work started.
Okay.
Is that, yes?
Do you want a copy of the estimate or a letter I've typed up about myself?
Well, I think Ms. Stimson could probably. Mr. Messer.
My question would be for Mr. Coulter, whether your contractor,
Say again?
whether your contractor was working from the repair list shown.
He has a copy of it. I gave him a copy yesterday.
All right, so he included all of these items on his
Yes.
estimate?
That's the estimate he gave me, and like I said, I have multiple copies if you want to see a copy of it.
Yeah, I don't think
He included all the information and repairs. He's actually been in the building before because I've had him look at it in the past few months. I paid someone else to actually keep up the grass in the yard. They actually cut the grass twice a month. I've had another person replace the water heater inside the building, and I've had 3 different companies actually look at doing repairs for the building for my mom, but like I said, I've had to just take over because she's having issues handling all the stuff by her own. Because my father used to handle all that stuff for her.
The reason I was asking that is because if he's got a contractor who can and does do the repair work for the price stated, then it might save everybody some time if we made this a repair or demolish order as opposed to a demolish, and save them having to come back through the process. I don't know if that's feasible.
So are you saying that we need to change the estimated cost of repair to take it out of the 65% category?
Take it out of that, yeah.
Well, we could do that and make it a repair or demolish, and then if the repair is not made on a timely basis, it goes to demolish. Whereas if repairs are made within the time frame, then we don't have to come back to the committee process.
And if it's out of that category, it gives him 90 days.
The only thing I would say, there's a process by which to contest the estimate, and that process is long expired. But certainly if the committee wants to open that up, it's up to the committee. You might want to see what staff might think about that option.
Well, that would be my question to staff, is whether that would seem like a reasonable option to staff based on your review.
So if we leave it as it is and the work is done, then it'll come back to us
Staff could bring it back.
To rescind, yeah.
in not next month, but the month after. And we'd have to rescind, which doesn't seem terrible.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Brooks, can you answer Mr. Bessie's question about changing the category?
The recommendation or the suggestion is a reasonable one. Other than just being out of process, I think it could be done. We would go out to, as we would, and if it's repaired, we would bring it back. Because of Councilmember Adams has asked, when cases are placed in the demolition category and repaired, you all would like to see the end results. So if that's the case, then you would see it. Otherwise, it would be demolished.
And I think that changed it to basically 90 days, essentially, to change the category.
Yeah.
I raise it as a possibility if...
Well, on the 90-day, I would still suggest leaving it at the 45 days. And if at the end of the 45-day period, if we see maybe 75, 80% is completed, and it appears that it's going to be completed, the rest, we would then consider an extension, but otherwise I would suggest leaving it at the 45-day period.
In addition, the contractor, per this estimate, has estimated that it would take him 14 days to do the work. So that's well within 45 days.
Does it look like all of the items from your exhibit are covered by that?
On the surface, it does. However, without consulting with the inspector to get specifically what the violation was, I would caution, perhaps.
Well, let's go ahead.
Excuse me, and the certification mentioned was not a HUD certification, but hub certified, meaning that they are certified through the state as an MWBE.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I have a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Coulter?
Yes, ma'am.
45 days. Good luck.
And at the end of the 45 days, I just want to know what my requirements are. So what
Well,
do you
first
want me to
of all-
have completed by 45 days?
Certainly, if you've made good progress,
So a good
that will be
progress.
taken into consideration.
Yes, I think probably, so you'll be very specific about what we're doing. We'll meet with you and look at the scope of work and can just walk you through the items that we believe could be completed within that time period and determine that to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 80%.
Okay.
And the expectation would be that you would have at least that much repaired.
Is it possible I can meet with someone next week? Because I want to make sure if this is
You
what's
can
going to
meet.
happen.
Yes, you can.
I want to make sure the
We'll
person.
discuss it outside.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Cole, let me just say something to you and everybody else who we've spoken to tonight. We would like nothing more than you to be successful in doing what we've asked you to do. Tearing this down does nothing for the community other than remove a blighted eyesore. Repairing it provides housing at far lower cost than somebody coming in and building a new one. So we want you to be successful in this. So we'll help you however reasonably we can.
Thank you, Mr. Coulter. We can move on to the general agenda. Ms. Stimson, thank you. Okay. G1?
Item G1.
Just from my understanding, when we say that we're going to bring the items that we're going to be reporting on next month, you want the report at the committee meeting, or do you want the report in advance? Since I understand we're not presenting housing cases in September.
In advance.
In advance.
Yeah.
If you can
In
give.
advance.
In advance.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Item G1, resolution supporting Project Impact, a community-led initiative to provide additional operating funds to Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools to address critical student achievement gaps.
Good afternoon, Chairman Light, members of the General Government Committee. I'll be very brief. This is a request from Project Impact, and they do have representatives here today if you have any questions. But it is a local business-led community to raise $45 million for the Winston-Salem County school system to help address critical student achievement gaps. To date, they've raised about $22 million. All they're asking for from the city at this point is just acknowledgement of the work that they're doing. As they go out and fundraise, it's helpful for them to be able to say that the city and the county has actually already adopted the resolution, but the city and county sort of support what we're doing. Long-term vision may be that after 6 years, if it's successful, they may come back and try to look for some type of public funding strategy, but this resolution does not attach any type of commitment to it, and it's really just a commitment of support for the initiative. Have representatives here from Project Impact if you have any specific questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I can say that there are different groups. We have the names of the organizations working on this, but there are many other groups as well. I don't think that anyone would think that we would vote not to support it because, as we know, most of the schools that are the poor performers and the poverty are in our neighborhoods. So definitely I will support this, and going forward, I would like to see, as I read through it, a little bit more detailed the action plan as to how you expect to accomplish some of this. I've seen I call it the 35,000 feet look, or the 2 or 3 goals, but it's more to it than just saying these nice goals, because there are other things, as we know, that definitely have to be worked on. Again, everybody knows in Winston that we have a lot of foundations, we got a lot of people that care, we come out with some great ideas, and we put a lot of money to it, and we've been doing that for a long time now. I would just like to see somebody show me some success and do what needs to be done versus, and the community holds all of us accountable when we say we're going to do something to better the lives of others. So I'm excited about this. I was with the leadership insight group this past spring, and this was definitely a piece that we talked about in every session. So I'm excited to see you get started, and I wish you luck, and I'll be supporting it.
I'm also in support, and I think it's it's a good example of doing something different and relying on ourselves versus outside forces to improve our school system. And I'm highly in favor of it, and I wish you great success.
Mr. Montgomery.
Yeah, just comment. One, I think it's great the efforts that we're doing in the community. My second job post college was working at Family Services and primarily working with the Head Start program and understanding the program that exists and working with individuals and children who are coming from stressed families and stressed environments where there are issues and challenges. The data shows very clearly that when you reach children and you give them a Head Start, as the program has said, when you give them that Head Start, work with them before they even get to kindergarten, that investment pays off greatly. And then some of the data shows, and hopefully we can tie all these pieces together, and I'm sure that's what the experts who are doing all this work are going to be able to do, is that oftentimes something happens even when children get that extra foundation, that once they get into school systems, sometimes what they had as they were going into it seems to fall off in some places. And so I hope that we are able to get more kids into getting that great foundation in the beginning when we have pre-K, but then also making sure that we're connecting the dots even more for those children as they continue to go through, because it makes a great difference. So again, thank you to all those who are making the good hard work and raising those dollars to make sure we can do it.
Pleasure.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Y'all didn't think y'all were going to have to wait that long.
Okay, G2.
Item G2, ordinance amending Chapter 2 of the City Code entitled Administration related to the Piedmont Triad Airport Authority.
Ms. Carmen.
What you have before you is an ordinance that formalizes the process for the appointment by the City Council of its one member to the Piedmont Triad Airport Authority. Historically, the Mayor Pro Tem has made the recommendation and City Council has made that appointment. And also, this ordinance allows the City Council, like the County Commissioners, to appoint from its membership a City Council as a member of the Piedmont Airport Authority.
Okay.
So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
At the moment, we have a citizen that was appointed sitting on the board.
Yes.
The commission.
Mr. Drew Hancock was appointed by council for the unexpired term of William Moore III on September 18, 2015. And Mr. Hancock's term expires this month.
Okay. And what would the procedure then would be if, say, a council member wanted to be on the airport authority to approach Mrs. Burke?
Mayor Pro Tem would make the recommendation to council, and then it would go to through committee to full council for approval.
Okay. Thank you. Pleasure.
And this is for the airport east of us, not north of us, right? Okay.
Piedmont Triad.
Piedmont Triad.
Airport.
Yes.
Oh. Okay.
Does this in any way lead us to greater obligation to support Triad Airport funding-wise, or?
No, it just formalizes basically the process that's been in place in terms of the appointment by council to the authority. And it also allows the council pretty much, which it really could do anyway, to appoint one of its members to the authority. It doesn't have any financial commitment.
I have a question. Do we have this same process for Smith Reynolds?
No.
Are we looking at trying to do that since now the county and the city, and we are
We have,
helping with the economic initiatives as we move forward.
we have requested that on numerous occasions. We'll continue to request that. It will require a local act to amend the way the Airport Commission, the Smith Reynolds Airport Commission is set up, but we will continue to request that.
Okay. Move for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. If it's okay with everyone, we have, under item 4, G4, we have something that was at Finance Committee.
Correct.
Yesterday. If we could quickly take a look at that and then come back and save the accessory dwelling to finish out our time here. What is it that's G5?
Yeah, G4.
Or G4.
G4.
No, but G5 on the, Finance Committee.
Oh. Madam Chair, how many of us were there yesterday when this was discussed? I was, Councilman McIntyre, Sub-Councilman Bessie, and Councilman Light. So Councilman Bessie wasn't there.
What was the item?
It's consideration of items related to the allocation of additional funds for Patterson/Glen area. Is that the one you talked about?
Mm-hmm. And what was the recommendation from Finance? What was the vote? I think it was approval, all
It was
three.
unanimous.
Unanimous.
Okay.
I have no objection.
Okay.
I've
All
had
right.
an opportunity to review this.
I move for approval of G4 on the agenda.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now, let's
spend 20 minutes talking about accessory.
Yeah, obviously, we are not going to make headway if we only have 20 minutes to discuss this. But I did want to just make a start to and just work through the questions that we have to decide about accessory dwelling. What we can recommend to the full council somewhere down the road when we get through all of this. So, the staff has also put together a list on page 47 of your agenda book. They're more or less the same questions as I have here. Here are some extra ones if anybody needs. Lee would probably want one. Okay. This accessory dwelling. Kirk, do you or Paul want to just come sit with us so you can
Be in the line of fire.
Come sit. Come join the family.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, the first question is, are we going to allow accessory dwellings? Yes.
I think we really need to address the question of purpose. We're talking about allowing an additional residential structure on the lot that is not zoned for additional residential structure. And so we need to candidly address the function. Since the original concept of a relative staying there is no longer valid.
Correct.
Since we are told that we are prohibited by law from limiting to that, why are we allowing a second complete residential structure on a lot that is not zoned for that? I'm just laying that out there.
I got an answer. One of the reasons is that it's being done already and it's not being inspected. It's almost impossible to police after the fact. So we have people who are doing this on their own without inspections. We have no idea of the safety of their work. This would allow us to do that. That's, to me, sort of a minor one, but To me, the big question is, if the community grows and the population grows, what is the alternative to increasing density in some of our existing neighborhoods? And the answer is it's sprawl. And I just spent the last 2 weekends. I was in Raleigh, I was in Atlanta, I was in Greenville, South Carolina, and those are cities that are considered fairly successful. But that sprawl is just amazing. And from a quality of life standpoint, it will have a major impact on our community. We're already sprawled, I think, somewhat to begin with. So to me, the balance is the protecting of the existing neighborhood structures and sort of the rhythm of the existing neighborhoods without completely shutting down the use of accessory dwelling units, because that in turn will force sprawl on our community like we wouldn't believe. We have not grown much in the last 5 to 10 years, but if we do see a spurt of growth like we're all sort of hoping and expecting, the pressure is going to be fairly intense and we'll lose an awful lot of green field, an awful lot of trees in the outer part of our city and county if we don't have this as an option.
Well, that begs the question whether this is the best way to go about it. In effect, what it does is authorize the wholesale transition of single-family zone lots to dual-family zone lots.
Okay, if I respond?
Yeah.
To me, what we're looking at here is we need a tool to work with here, but we're looking at a hammer. In some neighborhoods, I think it's completely appropriate. In some neighborhoods, I don't think it's appropriate at all. But we're talking about a citywide based on square footage of the lot. And to me, that's not a very effective or efficient way to gauge whether a neighborhood is an appropriate place to have accessory dwelling units. What happens in West End is very different than what happens in Winston-Salem, because one has an overlay district, the other doesn't. So, I mean, the complications and the variations there are lots of them, and we're talking about just doing one broad thing over all of it, which I think doesn't serve the people in the neighborhoods that want this, but it serves the people in the neighborhoods who don't want it. So to me, it's too broad.
Mr. Norby, before.
Yes, if I could just add just a kind of a point of context. We have had provisions for allowing accessory dwellings in single-family zone districts since the 1930s. So this isn't really anything new. What prompted this to change is the case law that basically broadened out the potential population that could occupy accessory dwellings. And so to counterbalance that, the staff thought it was still worthy to have accessory dwellings, and there was support for it in our adopted plan. So what we wanted to do to counterbalance that is to make the regulations tougher in terms of how, when, and where you could have accessory dwellings. So that's where we are. But we're trying to maintain the status quo in terms of allowing accessory dwellings that has been there since the 1930s.
Just one sort of rebuttal point, and then I'll stop hogging the mic. I think that's pretty much what I said, except for the fact that it takes attention off the emphasis on the original purpose of the accessory dwelling as permitted historically in Winston-Salem was the family usage. Mm-hmm. It is a radical change in concept to simply permit the construction on lots in single-family zone areas for a second use by anyone. You can make an argument that that is a positive radical change. I'm not trying to preclude someone standing up and making that argument, but I think it would be not accurate to suggest that it is not a very dramatic change in usage.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I want to thank staff. You guys have been working on this for a while now.
Mm-hmm. And you got a ways to go.
Mm-hmm. And just as I said then, I don't think this is one of these things where we're going to get through this today, next month. This is a paradigm shift for a lot of people as to how they see their neighborhoods now, what they were in the 30s, and where we're going. I can applaud the fact, as you said, you gave us the historical perspective that we've always been able to do this. It's just that because of the nature of the world at the time, everybody could build and do whatever they wanted, and they liked being spread out. There was no intent to have density, really, not in towns like this. But as you stated during the report that you gave us, we already have some of the strictest regulations compared to other municipalities in North Carolina. I believe that a lot of this, for people that live in the urban core, there are neighborhoods that are historical in nature, they got overlays, whatever. But then there are other neighborhoods, again, that don't fare as well as these neighborhoods, and that's a reality we need to understand. Within the African American, Latino, Hispanic, and poor communities in the urban core, we can't afford to move out our people because once they're living in poverty, the bus lines run in the city, the medical, the doctors, whatever, one or two grocery stores 10, 20 miles away, they have to stay near that. And the population of Winston-Salem, which you didn't, I don't think, mention in your report, and I've seen a lot of it lately myself, data, we're getting older by the day. This community is going to do a very deep shift in another 3 to 5 years to everybody, majority will be over 55 years old. I see this, as I've said before, as a way to have density within our urban communities that don't have it right now. Affordable housing, our elderly, those are two factors that I'm about. I also believe that just like they said that municipalities can regulate the property use to a certain extent, but I think a property owner should be able to do, if they want to build a dwelling that's within whatever the regulations of the city of Winston, I think they should be able to do that. Again, if it's much like parking on the lawn, that neighborhoods now need to decide by a vote a percentage of their community as who wants the accessory and detached buildings, dwellings, and who don't. I'm sure the people that live in the communities that I saw listed throughout the report, there was only one instance where I saw the urban community of Greenway and East Winston and a couple of others, but most of the communities listed, they're not like our communities. So I can feel whatever it is that they want to do is within their right, as long as it's legally within their right. I applaud the state for helping everybody to understand that you can't decide what is a family, because again, the world has changed. So again, Madam Chair, for me, I've read this, I've read everything you've always sent me. I am about the tiny house concept. I am about tiny dwellings. I am about that because for my community, it would bring back maybe a sense of community again where we can feel like we care about each other like we did when I was growing up. So I will be supporting the recommendations from planning, and whatever our attorney says that we can and can't do, I agree with that also, within the legal ramifications.
May I ask you a question, Dee Dee? Are you suggesting that neighborhoods vote on, like with the parking on lawn?
Why not? Because Ardmore, West End, and all other, Buena Vista and all those neighborhoods that they named, I'm sure they'll vote 100%. No problem, because they don't want it. But some of us who have land in our communities, as you've seen these houses come today, and they're big enough, the lots were big enough to put a couple of dwellings on them for older people to stay near their churches, stay near their family and their friends and their neighborhood. And we don't, most of our folks, including me, I don't have the income to move to assisted living developments, chairperson light. I don't have that opportunity to do that, and I don't know many of my friends and relatives that can. So within the urban core, let's say within the North Ward, we support it because we got land. There's a place behind me now, 10 acres. Planning knows about the 10 acres, the city manager. A developer wants to put possibly 26 houses on 10 acres. That's 0.333 acres per house. You got to wonder how big the house is. And it backs right up into Marlowe Avenue. I don't have a problem with that. As long as it is what it is, RS9, as long as, and these are residential, so you talk about 3, 4, 5, 10 people, whatever, living in the house. But with this, we can, attorney or Kurt, help me, we can limit how many people can live in these dwellings, too?
Yes, ma'am.
That's one of the,
That's the one thing that I like about it. I don't have to worry about 10 people living in the house. So I like it.
Okay.
Again,
All right.
yes, I support neighborhoods being able to determine their own fate.
okay. All right. Councilmember Montgomery.
Yes, and when I think about the accessory dwellings, I do agree with Councilmember Bessie that it is a radical change in terms of what's happening by removing the familial status as a part of it. I think that is a drastic change, but I think I land on the opposite end of believing that it presents a positive opportunity for a community if approached properly. And I think that being able to have the proper structure and guidelines in place and allowing neighborhoods to have some ability to weigh in that could make it where it is not overbearing in neighborhoods and communities. I'm not sure if it's one of where you may, I guess it's a sense of where you vote into a system, or maybe it's a sense where you vote out of a system, in a sense where it's a neighborhood that decides, they don't want to have accessory dwellings within a specified area. I'm not sure if that's
I think that's something we can certainly look at.
an opportunity
Bring it back.
that exists there, but a way that, there's certain neighborhoods that say just very much adamant this is not something that we want to see. But then also looking at what does that do and look like for other neighborhoods. And I think it's a sense of when these buildings are constructed, a question I would ask is, when they come and build these, again, they would have to request a building permit, like in building that, and would it have to state in that process that it's an accessory dwelling unit at that time?
That's correct.
And so with that, and again, this hadn't been something that's moved past, but I think it would be important to examine for a period of time, and I don't know if there's could be I don't know, we can do sunsets or anything that goes out, but to actually see whether or not anything actually changes within the community. Do we see an increase in accessory dwellings? Do we see anyone? Is this something that we see this great acceleration happening within the community over a certain period of time? And if that is the case, what is happening within the community? What's shifting? What's changing? Even with the guidelines that we have in place, but actually, does this make a difference? And I'd say even since we've seen the change as of now, which has been kind of short, have we seen, any difference from those in community as of now based on current standards with accessory dwellings?
We haven't seen any difference in the amount of accessory permits based on when the city attorney's office advised us to stop enforcing the one controversial aspect of the ordinance.
But do people know about?
It's not something that we've publicized.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reporter back there, so.
Yeah. And may I point out something else, too, to go along with what Councilmember Adams said about neighborhoods in the poorer areas or the
Urban core.
well, yeah, but the thing is that the requests or the different options that have come to us all pretty much say 9,000 square foot minimum lot size. Well, most of the urban core is 7,000, so would not even qualify. So we would not. That's one decision that we would absolutely have to make. What the limit is going, the lot size is going to be, and therefore, Kurt, could you at some point draw us a picture?
I've actually got something. Let me see if I can fit it on Elmo.
Okay. No, actually, that picture, but it's the same one, but also a 7,000 square foot lot has, let's say, 1,000 square foot house on it with the appropriate setbacks and all of that. How much space is there for an accessory dwelling of, say, 500 square feet?
I'll be glad to prepare that for the next committee.
Okay, all right, that would be great, yeah. Okay, so that's obviously a decision that's going to have to come is the lot size. Another decision is going to be just what I mentioned, the size of the accessory dwelling. It's been suggested 1,000 square feet, but that's a normal-sized house, isn't it?
Basically.
Yeah, one-story, normal-sized house. I think that's how much my ground floor is.
And to your light, if I could just clarify that point of the ordinance, 1,000 square feet is a maximum. It's also a provision that's twinned with that, that's 1,000 square feet is a maximum or 5% of total lot area, whichever is less. So in order to have that 1,000 square foot accessory detached unit, you would have to have a half-acre lot, 20,000 square foot lot.
On a 7,000 square foot lot, you're talking 350 square feet.
So the standard RS9, 9,000 square foot lots, which you can see in kind of the blue areas on the map there, you're talking about 450 square feet.
Oh, okay.
So generally, these units are going to be smaller than the 1,000 square feet, but we did want to have some provisions in the ordinance for some of the larger lots that you do find in the urban and suburban areas of the city, that if someone wanted to do a larger unit, where it makes sense contextually, that we preserve that option.
And I'll say the typical single-family house that's permitted now is you're going to be somewhere between 1,500 square feet and 2,500 square feet. So 1,000 is pretty small for that. It's a large apartment, small, very small house.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Dan?
Some additional data that I'd like. From the date that we stopped enforcing the familial requirement, can we get a total of the number of accessory structure permits that have been issued?
We'll prepare that for the committee as well.
Information about location and actual construction that followed. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I would also I'd like to see alternative to the 9,000 square foot. You know, to me, the neighborhood approving it makes more sense than this one size fits all.
Absolutely.
But I need to check on the legality of that.
Okay. All right.
You need to check, I'm sorry.
Make sure that's legal, that we can do it that way.
Uh-huh.
And just,
But I'll check on it.
I just came back from a Smart Growth America conference, and one of the council members from Minneapolis got up and was talking about this. And Minneapolis is a significantly larger city than we are, and in a couple of years since they had changed their ordinance to make it more, to make it easier to do an accessory dwelling unit, they had 50 applications. And so I don't think the market is going to flood us with applications. I think it offers area for creativity to try out some different housing styles. But the last thing we want to have is to go back to where we were in the late 70s, early 80s. I mean, I converted 7 structures from multifamily back to single family because they had been bought cheap and converted, you know, shoddily. So I mean, I don't want to go back to that, and that's the razor that we're fighting here. Is we have to do this so that we don't encourage poor development, but I think we do have to offer up more options. You know, the parking issue is another one. You know, I guess I'm okay with one space, but the people who are going to be living in a lot of these structures are not going to have a car. Mm-hmm. Structural housing, the housing needs are changing. So I think we kind of get stuck in what we would want for houses, and we're really developing a lot of this for Mr. Montgomery's age
They want
people.
mass transit. They want bicycles. They
Right,
want
so-
walkability. They want.
But we have to maintain the character and the structure
Of the neighborhood.
of our neighborhoods that we've put tremendous amount of time and effort into making as good as they are now.
Let me ask another question. Your comment about shoddy building. We've run into any number of problems with adhering to minimum building codes, and we know that's not adequate. How do we regulate the actual building of accessory dwellings?
My understanding, and I'll let the city attorney confirm, but my understanding is that since this is a dwelling just like a single-family house, just on a smaller scale, we would be bound by the North Carolina Building Code and any local ordinances that affect construction practices for the city.
That's my understanding as well.
And I think the only exception is if it's in a historic district, then it would have to meet the design standards of that district, have to get a certificate of appropriateness. The other option is additional requirements put on through a neighborhood conservation district. There's a couple of neighborhoods in the city that have gone to that, and they could come up with some standards, although state law would prohibit it getting into architectural standards, as you recall. But there could be some standards in terms of, additional standards in terms of placement, size, things like that.
So you could possibly use a form-based code concept towards it?
Yes, you could, as long as you didn't get into architecture.
Right.
Right.
That's interesting.
I don't understand.
Form-based code, and Kirk probably speak more eloquently to it.
Basically, a form-based code, to give you an example, we have 2 form-based districts in our UDO currently. The Winston Overlay District downtown that you all approved about 6 years ago, and the Martin Luther King Jr. Drive Overlay District, which you approved about 4 years ago. Those require the buildings to be placed a certain way. They require parking to be located a certain way. Things of that nature are form-based, whereas most development ordinance regulate by use conditions, which most of our ordinance does, such as if you're doing a restaurant, you might have to do these conditions, whereas if you're doing an office, you might have to do a different set of treatments. So that's really the distinction between form-based and performance-based zoning.
And yet, you can't say anything about the architecture.
The North Carolina general statutes were particularly tightened in the 2015 session to make it very difficult to have explicit design provisions for single-family residential. So that's basically the legal framework that we're bound to in the city.
Can you, so does that exclude saying roof pitch, defining roof pitches and things like that? Can that still be done?
I think roof pitches is one of those things that we can't get into.
Cannot.
Going on memory.
And there is a special provision in that legislation for things like genuine historic districts like West End or things like that. Those are allowed to have more explicit criteria for design,
right.
But in terms of just general single-family zoning like an RS9 zoning district.
But that's, when you bring up some of the houses we've seen on the demolition list today, you know, they're sweet little cottages. What if someone goes in and puts in some sort of, whoops, almost said something bad, some sort of really modern, funky kind of accessory dwelling? I mean,
I like that kind of stuff.
huh? You like that stuff,
I don't think we can stop that.
Like the stitch houses over in West Salem?
Explain.
Some people love that. I mean,
The law.
Okay, all right.
To address Councilmember Adams' point, yes, Councilmember Adams, you are correct that based on the general statutes, we aren't allowed to expand our controls to things like the design of accessory units to that extent. What we are allowed to do is address things like the relationship buildings have to each other through setbacks or other requirements. We can address screening through landscape buffers or things of that nature. We can address parking and square footage maximums or limitations, but we can't get into the specifics such as where windows, doors are, or materials.
Okay.
unless you're in an overlay district like the West End or Old Salem.
Okay.
And those are tools that are available to our neighborhoods if they want to go an overlay route,
Correct.
provide an extra layer of protection. Now, conservation overlay, what sort of protection would that provide?
A neighborhood conservation overlay is kind of a middle ground in that area. It's not statutorily given the same authority as a genuine historic overlay district or an H historic district, and would have to go through some specifics with the city attorney's office if someone had a proposal to see what exactly would be required. But you are allowed to address things like building placement on the lot and general design things like where the front of the door is. I believe you can still do that, but that's something that we would have to do some more research on to see what would be allowed in an NCO.
Okay. We're already infringing on Dan's time here.
We've got a lot of agenda tonight. I would be happy to start at 6:15.
Okay, all right. Well, let me just say that, first of all, to request staff to perhaps lighten up, well, someone said we're not going to do demolitions next month.
That's my understanding.
That's because you have a lot of other items on the agenda for next month.
Okay, but, I mean, certainly sometime we need time to discuss all this. And so if we can lighten up agenda by a little bit in the next several months, that would surely help. But you all have these questions that were put together, and certainly you have the report from planning. So, what about October?
Can we do October? Since
Well-
September's already booked.
Well, if September is too full, then, but if it's not, we'll go back to
November.
this. But, I mean, you know, we do have to figure out about where allowed, the size. I think we've already figured out that a percentage number is going to dictate that. Number of residents, I think we've already.
I think we're heading in the right direction. now.
Yeah,
I think-
setbacks, that's something that I think, you know, half the distance of what the main dwelling, is that a side setback or the back setback?
The side setback would be identical to that of the principal residence. And just to give you some context, under the current ordinance, you can have your accessory residential detached unit 3 feet from both the back and the side. So this is actually making it much more restrictive than the current ordinance. You're correct in terms of the rear setback is half the rear setback of the principal structure. So if you're in RS9 or a similar zoning district, that structure, the principal use would have a 25-foot rear setback. So you're talking about a 12.5-foot rear setback versus the 3-foot setback that's in place currently.
Okay. Okay. The parking, how the ZBA is going to be involved in this. If we make rules, are they going to be allowed to give exceptions to those rules? That's something to think about. And of course, the question keeps coming up about minimum rental time so that an accessory dwelling doesn't turn out to be every weekend people move in and out or something. Yes, ma'am.
Just as the information that staff gave us, and some that planning board also talked about, some of the things that we are asking or people are asking, who's going to regulate it? Who's going to inspect it to make sure that it's following the letter of the law? Ms. Garrity, Madam Attorney, anything that we don't have to do, people look at taxes. We don't have the personnel to go out and walk through communities and try to discern who's using their dwelling as rental. So let's make that very clear from my standpoint. So,
Councilman Brewer would have to be on a complaint basis.
Yeah.
We do not have the resources to proactively go out and see how the turnover in even existing facilities, houses in the city.
The staff report basically said we don't have a problem, and let's monitor it until we start to see a problem, and then let's deal with it.
Yeah,
I'll be
okay.
interested to see what the data show us
the
about
data shows.
what we're seeing currently in terms of these constructions actually underway. Very interesting to see.
Yeah. Okay, everybody think about all this, and if there's time in September, maybe you can give us some of the data we've asked for. If
We'll work towards that and get you the legislation they mentioned is actually SB 25, the design control legislation that passed in 25. But we'll work on trying to get some of the legal questions resolved by September.
Okay. Particularly because I'm intrigued by the opt-in or whatever.
And one more thing, Attorney Carmen, and I don't know whether you're able to look down the road. I know we got the legislative goals that we're putting together.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want us to put anything in it, and that's another thing we need to help council and other municipalities understand. If you're putting in your goals something restrictive that goes, and then people get wind of it at the legislature, they can then circle the wagons to prevent you, and then they can restrict you, just like our body cams, from what you've already done. So, Attorney Carmen, could you get with our folks in Raleigh and look down the road with the league and with the organization to see, which I've heard more is coming, on developers, landlords, how we do housing and stuff within municipalities. Can you check so that we can kind of stay on top of that as we move through this process?
I'll be happy to. As I mentioned probably last week, a lot of the regulatory reform was basically pushed aside this session, but it's coming back in 2017.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. May I have a motion to
move for adjournment?
Second.